This evening, Australia finally restores some batting pride heading into day 2 at the Oval. Michael Clarke received a guard of honour but failed again. The tourists were boosted by half-centuries from David Warner and Steve Smith.
Obviously the series is done, but for us it's about winning this test match, and at the moment it's a good toss to lose.
I'm Mark Douglas and this is Grandstand. Thanks for your company. Australia will be looking to build a large first innings total when day 2 of the 5th Ashes Test gets underway tonight. The tourists will start the day on 3 for 287. Playing in his farewell test, captain Michael Clarke lost the toss and his innings didn't go to plan either. But his side is in a strong position with Steve Smith unbeaten on 78. Patrick Galloway reports.
Michael Clarke's walk to the middle was one to remember.
Then the handshake of Alistair Cook, the England captain.
He thoroughly deserved that today, and there's great respect from the English cricket team.
I don't know if it was planned, but Cookie just sort of said line up and show respect, and I think it was the right thing to do.
The Australian captain began well, but a Ben Stokes delivery caught him by surprise when he was on 15.
Extra bounce, yes!
That's what happens here, you know, you don't really ever fill in.
The toss was won by England's captain Alistair Cook, who chose to bowl.
You know, it might do a little bit early. It's down to us again to get the ball in the right place.
But unlike the last test, Australia's openers decided not to swing at everything.
Well, Broady said to me it was like Angus Fraser bowling to Mark Taylor out there.
It certainly was slow going, and right when the locals were starting to lose interest, Warner got moving.
Yep, there we go, at last.
It took over an hour for the first boundary, and the opener wasn't the only one taking a swing, with Shane Warne sharing his view on the selectors.
They haven't summed up the conditions well enough, and someone has to be accountable for it.
England came close to a breakthrough.
Oh, just short.
Warner reached 50 before lunch, posting a 110-run opening stand with Chris Rogers.
The pocket rocket.
Rogers went for 43 off 100 balls, leaving Steve Smith to rediscover his touch.
Oh, he's overpitched and pays the price.
You know, today it just looked like they probably didn't hit their right lengths.
Warner came unstuck on 85.
After that's edged.
And Johnny Bairstow was glad he grabbed the protective gear late in the day.
Oh, that's a nasty one. Oh, no, don't tell me. Oh.
They just played well, and hats off to them.
Adam Voges and Smith left the field when bad light stopped play. Patrick Galloway, ABC News.
Wallabies coach Michael Cheika has delivered more selection surprises in announcing his 31-man squad to compete at the Rugby World Cup. He's chosen to stick with Quade Cooper, while former captain James Horwill has been omitted. Jennifer Browning reports.
31 players, 13 fresh faces and a few notable absentees.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 2015 Rugby World Cup Qantas Wallabies.
James Horwill, who captained the Wallabies at the last World Cup, and Nick White are the two biggest casualties of the squad selection.
That was a very difficult conversation for me last night.
Ironically, Horwill was named to replace Rocky Elsom as skipper at the same event at the same venue 4 years ago.
Credit to James and to the other players that were left out. Their attitude in being with the disappointment they had was brilliant.
Matt Giteau knows how it feels to be left at home. In 2011, he didn't make Robbie Dean's cut.
I know what it's like to miss out, so I've got a couple of close friends that have missed out, and you know, kind of feeling for them, but at the same time very excited.
Thanks to a change in the rules, Giteau is back to play in a third World Cup.
Now to be given an opportunity and to not have played for the last 3 years for my country, to then be given an opportunity to play again, it's been amazing.
Despite plenty of criticism, Cheika has shown faith in fly half Quade Cooper.
I don't know why people are quizzing that selection. He's been a long-term player for Australia, and I think he's done well for us.
The Wallabies will now assemble in camp to ramp up their World Cup preparations. They'll travel to the United States next weekend for a warm-up match in Chicago before travelling to the UK ahead of their first pool game against Fiji.
It's all upon us now, so look, I'm really proud of all the guys and all the work we've done so far, and I believe strongly in everyone here today.
The Wallabies must finish in the top 2 of their World Cup group to qualify for the quarterfinals. Jennifer Browning, ABC News.
The race for positions in the NRL Top 8 intensifies this weekend, with the Bulldogs and the Seagulls needing wins to keep pace. Last night, the Dragons ensured they'll remain firmly in the finals picture for the next couple of weeks, with a gritty win over the Panthers. With his thoughts on how the weekend's key matchups will play out, it's welcome back former Sharks coach Stuart Raper. Stu, thanks for your time once again.
Thanks, Mark.
Let's firstly start with this shoulder charge debate that's been going on through the week and the policing of the shoulder charge. Where do you stand? Has it been over-policed in the last week?
Well, it probably has. I think they came in after a couple of shoulder charges and thought we need to do all shoulder charges are going to be charged. I think a bit of common sense prevailed. The three guys got off on Wednesday, and I think there will be some slight changes. I think there's a difference between, a shoulder charge is something you're going into a tackle with force. There's a difference between that and what happened on the weekend where there was a protection type aspect where guys were trying to protect themselves within the tackle. And I think a bit of common sense will prevail in the future.
Now let's get on to last night's action. St George beating Penrith, a game that never really got to any great high. What did you think of the Dragons' performance?
Well, it wasn't pretty. It was a bit ugly. There was a lot of ball going around, a lot of errors by both sides. But I think the thing that impressed everyone watching last night was the way that the Dragons defended. It's something, when they were on top of the competition in the mid-season, their defence was fantastic. That and their kicking game was very good. They kicked to the corners. They had 2 restarts, which got them back in the game. And I think that was a big part of their performance last night. Their attack has still got to improve for them to make any dent if they do get in the top 8.
Now tonight, the Bulldogs and the Rabbitohs renew their rivalry. Of course, they played in the grand final last year and had a fairly fiery encounter this year. Do you think this one might well be won in the forwards?
I think it's going to be a battle of the forwards, and 2 players that impressed me have been the lock forwards. Chris McQueen last week, he's an ex-winger. So he's got plenty of pace as a back rower, as a lock forward. And he can play on the fringe, can play tight. He's a tough player, he's hard. I mean, he's played a bit of Origin, so he's quite experienced. And they'll need him to be really hitting those fringes, making some dents in the opposition.
And for the Bulldogs, one of the unsung heroes, Greg Eastwood.
Yeah, he's not the most... He's the biggest lock forward, I think, in the competition.
Yes.
He's got a great engine on him. He works hard. He plays a lot of minutes. And he's got a little bit of speed, and he's quite a smart player. And he's really tough, in a bit of an unsung hero, as I said, in the Bulldog side. And they need to find some points, and he's someone that can break the line and contribute into trying to get some points.
Now, the top of the table clash on Saturday night, the Roosters and the Broncos. Again, it could well be the front rowers in this one who dominate proceedings.
Really looking forward to the battle of the props. Jared Hargraves showed last week what a powerful player he is. He's the best prop in the game. This try he scored was an unbelievable try. And it wasn't only that try, but his charges in the lead up to that, the sets after that, were unbelievable. I know he ran over a halfback or a hooker and a fullback, but I tell you, he's a hard man to stop. And if he keeps his form up, he's really going to lead the Roosters, especially tonight when playing the Broncos. They're a good foot side. They're top of competition. They're playing quite well. And Sam Tide, he needs to lead for the Broncos. And last round, these two had a really ding-dong battle. We're interested to see how they go head-to-head tonight.
It will be interesting. Stu, it's obviously going to be a big weekend of rugby league. We'll catch up with you again next week.
Thanks, Mark.
Essendon's caretaker coach Matthew Egan has vowed to bring some excitement back to the Bombers' performances as he prepares for the first game in charge of the embattled club. The 32-year-old has taken over from James Hird, whose controversial tenure ended with his resignation on Tuesday.
The Bombers have embarked on their first journey of the post-Hird era.
Had a great training session yesterday and a really good meeting and training today, so mood's fine. They're up vibe and they're excited about playing this weekend.
After an emotional week, the interim coach has a simple strategy to guide the players through the final 3 rounds of the season.
We've spoken a little bit about our attack and just playing with some freedom and excitement, no doubt, but we've been the easiest team to score against in defence, so if we keep that form going, we're not going to give ourselves a chance of winning.
He also has a plan for disenchanted key position player Jake Carlisle. The 23-year-old has come under fire for reportedly venting his frustration on teammates and even telling opponents he wants to quit the club.
He was disappointed with the article in the paper. It's something that's been blown out of proportion, to be honest, because things that were reported weren't said.
Lockie Henderson's departure from Carlton has also stirred disappointment. Henderson left the Blues this week after he asked to be traded at the end of the year. Melbourne coach Paul Roos fears it's another step towards the AFL copying the NRL, where players can sign contracts with rival clubs mid-season.
They're in a position now where they can't wind it back. I mean, we're in a position where we don't want to see it happening, and I think what Carlton have done is a bit of a window into the future.
Changing code seems to be a different matter. Australian basketballer Hugh Greenwood shocked his NBL club, the Perth Wildcats, confirming he's walking away from the game to pursue a career in the AFL. Damien McIver, ABC News.
And former Sydney Swan Troy Luff joins me to preview some of the weekend's big games. Troy, welcome once again.
Afternoon, Mark.
Let's start with the Eagles and the Dogs, two of the form teams of the competition. The Eagles in second, the Dogs surprising in fourth.
Yep.
How do you see this one going?
There's a couple of really big games this weekend, and this is one of them that could shape the way the Final 4 and Final 8 finish. The Bulldogs, after a fantastic win last week, have all of a sudden proved themselves that they are top 4 contention. They're just in front of the Swans by percentage. The Eagles, last week, they really belted Fremantle at home, and I didn't see the Dockers ever in the game at all. What they've got to do is they've got to stop Josh Kennedy and Jack Darling, and their height is going to be hard for the Bulldogs to match up. I think Talia will take Kennedy for sure. But Mark Lacra's coming back into the side as well for the Eagles. So all of a sudden there's 3 key forwards. Nick Natanui also comes back into the side. Sinclair comes in. Eagles all of a sudden look a lot stronger. They've rested Boyd, which after he had a blinder last weekend is a little bit sore, and they just thought, look, the old body going to Perth may not be a good idea. Tom Campbell, who's been doing very well for the Dogs, he'll probably be up in the ruck against the likes of Natanui. And look, it's a really tough call. They haven't had a lot of luck over there in Perth. They've won 1 out of their last 7 against the Eagles at Subiaco. And I just think, looking at the ladder, the Bulldogs know how crucial it is. Eagles know how crucial it is because they want a home final first round. I do think the Eagles might win, but there's still a part of me that just thinks the Bulldogs know that the way they've gone this year, last year they were terrible. They won a handful of games. All of a sudden this year, they've been on a roll. They've blooded so many young players. The older guys like the Bob Murphys and Boyds are playing better. That a top 4, big chance. Eagles, but only just.
But do you think the Bulldogs are now at that sense that they think maybe they've overachieved?
I don't think overachieved. They've been on a high, and a lot of it's adrenaline, of course. You just get on a bit of a roll. It's only going to take one really bad defeat to knock the stuffing out of them, and it could be this weekend against the Eagles, but there's only 3 games left, so they're still looking pretty good.
Now, Freo up against the Kangaroos. The Kangaroos would be looking to get a bit of a surge on now into the finals, but Freo in particular, have we seen the best of them at the start of the year? Are they now tapering off?
You mentioned that about Fremantle, and they did. At the start of the year, they were so dominant, but they're only dominant by their wins, not dominant by their performance, in the way that they weren't kicking 100 points a game. They were just restricting the opposition to a very low score. They've lost Matthew Pavlich this week with an Achilles injury. Now, how long that is, we just don't know, and you lose him, it makes it really tough. The contest I'm looking forward to is number 1 ruckman Todd Goldstein versus the number 2 in Aaron Sandilands. Now, there's a bit of height difference. Sandilands is 6'11".
Monster, yeah.
Oh, that's huge. Yeah, that's massive. But Goldstein around the ground gets a lot more ball, and they have about equal with headouts. What North Melbourne need to do to win, Petrie's been good, kicked 4 last week. Lindsay Thomas has been really good. He's kicked 10 in the last 3 weeks. But it's Jared Waite. He's only kicked 13 in the last 10 games, which is not enough. Now, if the 3 of those can combine, it will be tough for the Dockers. Obviously, McFarlane down there is very strong, really good. The other end of the scale, they've lost Pavlich, so their forward all of a sudden doesn't look as strong. Walters is really good as a small forward, but other than that, they're going to have to rely on a lot of the Fifes or the Mundies or the Neils to chip in and kick a couple of goals.
Now, just quickly, the Sydney derby, the Swans and GWS. I know you're excited.
Very excited.
Do the Swans... they've got some injury problems, but do they have enough in reserve to get over the youngsters?
I think they do, and I say derby, by the way, not derby. I think Buddy Franklin's out. Now, this is his 4th game out of the last 5.
Derby,
it's
Sydney,
a derby. I'm a Victorian, we say it differently down there. Look, Buddy Franklin's out, 4th time in 5 weeks he's out. Gary Rowan is missed with a knee injury that he actually did at the start of last week, but played really well. Tom Mitchell got poked in the eye at training. Now, he had 41 disposals. He's averaging 26 this year.
Luke Parker obviously gone too.
Luke Parker broke his leg. But they're saying with the plates inserted, he could come back. It's in the tibia. He could come back and play in the finals. GWS, now, Jonathan Patton's been back for a couple of weeks. Hasn't really set the world on fire. But if him and Cameron can do well together, Canelio comes back in, Treloar comes back in for them, it's going to be a big game for both sides. GWS must win if they're a chance to make the finals. The Swans must win to stay top 4 contention. They beat the Swans last year at Spotless Stadium, and look, it's going to be a great game, but you know, of course, a bit of
red
and white blood in me.
Yeah.
It's got to be the Swans.
Good on you, Troy. We'll catch you again very soon. And that's Grandstand for now. You can also catch up on the show on iView and the Grandstand website.